This is Catalina Soto from English 102 class, and this is my project. It's about voter suppression, a human rights violation. So let's get it started. So, my research question was, how does voter discrimination from the past and present affect the views of freedom of speech? So, I kind of went this broad because I wasn't aware of any recent allegations towards voter discrimination, so I kind of wanted to go from the past, like the Jim Crow laws, so I just kept it really broad for a research question just so I had room to find my thesis. So over time, I really did not use the terms past and present just because I felt like it was limiting me. So that's how we get into the thesis statement. So my thesis statement is voter suppression in the United States is a human rights violation because it disenfranchises citizens. So as you can see, I do not use present or past just because it was too many words and I could probably fit it in my body paragraphs. So I just decided not to use that at all. And then I get into my body, and that is voter suppression in depth. So these are my main points: voter ID laws, racial discrimination, and lack of polls and registration sites. So with voter ID laws, I just felt like it overall prevented voters to vote if they don't have an ID. And that applies to a certain type of people because not that many people have IDs, especially in Arizona. We are next to Mexico, and that's just how it works here. And with racial discrimination, like I said, mainly minorities are being affected, and that is very true, just because some people don't feel like they can vote, so they don't, and then they aren't represented at the polls, and this becomes an imbalance. And same with the lack of poll and registration sites. It just limits people because it gives them less access to vote. And for the people that are afraid to vote, giving them limitations, that's not going to make them vote at all. So it definitely creates an imbalance within that system. So, opposing views of voter suppression. So, the only opposing view is people want to believe that voter suppression does not exist. And it seems kind of crazy, but it's like the term fake news that was said by Donald Trump a lot just because Democratic news sites like CNN and the New York Times would post stuff that he didn't agree with, so he would call it fake news, which to some extent I understand, just because radio stations, news stations, the media in general is very one-sided, especially if it's like Fox or CNN. They're gonna create stories that go with their side of the party. So I understand his statement with fake news, but to dismiss voter suppression at all is not okay because the evidence is there and it does happen. So the next one is solutions to voter suppression. So as voters, we pick who we want to be in office. And from those, you want to make sure that the people that you're voting for is what you believe in. So you ensure that things get done, because you don't want to vote someone that you don't believe in or that's not your party, because they're not going to do what you think that they're going to do. And I also think that politicians need to be held more accountable to what they say that they're going to do, because that's kind of what you vote them in for. So at the end of the day, it just comes down to the law and who we place into office. And it sucks because in this situation, voters are being suppressed. So the people who want to share their voices can't share them because the people in office are making them, belittling them. And with that goes with both sides. Obviously, both sides don't want to lose their position in office, so they make sure that they win. So it's not just to one party, it's both ways. But just like make sure you know who you're voting for and like what their motives are. So the next one, call to action. So, like I said, the people that are voted into office will change the problems with voter suppression. So it all comes down to the people that we vote into office, because they're the ones who are going to change everything. And it's very good to keep a good educated mind of who you're voting for, just because you never know, and doing research is very important. What's the next one? Oh yeah, so the rhetorical situation. So I believe that the author is me, an 18-year-old college student that is majoring in political science who is a Democrat. So I'm kind of biased towards this just because it's known that Republicans do not believe that voter suppression actually happens. In some cases, the voter ID laws, that's a main one. That's just there to prevent voter fraud, and voter fraud doesn't happen at all, so it doesn't make sense why we have voter ID laws. So I'm just kind of biased towards this topic just because of my political stance. Also, it's kind of nice because it goes along with my degree, so I enjoy this a lot. The audience is all voters in America who want to learn the importance of voting for the right people. So, like I said, it's just make sure you're educated. And this just goes to show, both parties can be at fault for this, but it shows you how important it is why we vote and what we're voting for. So the purpose of this is to educate the voters in America why voting is important. That is a main one. That is my purpose for sure. The topic, voter suppression in America, of course. That's just what my essay is all about. And it's very important because it does happen more than we think. Context. So currently we are in May after the election from November of 2020. So this isn't really relevant as the timeline just because it's after the election. But I mean, it's awareness is very important. So the context is just after the election, and just try to get everybody educated. So yes, let's go with the next ones. Oh yes, so this research process was a doozy. So I can read off them. Let's see. If I approach the same problems again, the best thing I would do differently is find more solutions for voter suppression and present them. So yes, I didn't find that many solutions for voter suppression, and that's just because I didn't have time to look for them. That's on me, but it's very simple. 2, I was proud of picking the topic of voter suppression and finding the evidence provided that it happens. Yes, voter suppression does happen, and it needs to be recognized more. So 3, the challenge best moments in the research process is finding evidence that goes against your point of view. So my point of view, the evidence that goes against it was very hard to find just because all the articles that I was reading didn't have the opposing view. So it was really hard to find evidence for the other side, but I made it work. 4, the best evidence that I found is that both parties are guilty of suppressing voters, which is very true, and that is because no one wants to lose their position in office. I mean, that goes along with anything. It's human nature to not want to let go of things that you've put effort into, that you worked hard for, but change is good, so that's, just turnover. But yeah. 5, for the future, I'll make sure I have an educated vote and know what is right and what's wrong. That is very true. Now I know what I'm searching for in a candidate, and I enjoyed this project very much. So this is my works cited page, and I hope you all have a great night. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye bye. Bye bye.